to the US with Peter Mathews, Professor of Political Science at Cyprus College. Over 700 pages, Professor? What has he got to hide?
A lot of material in there could actually be very revealing. And of course, the Congress wants to get a hold of that so they can find out where the president was during those hours, those precarious hours of the actual insurrection. Who was he speaking to? Who spoke to him? What was said? There were many, many things that are of great concern because we want to know what kind of involvement he might have had or who else might have had, including Steve Bannon. That's very important. That's why the Congress wants those documents.
I would have thought that most people think if he doesn't want you to see them, there's more interest in seeing them.
It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? If someone tries to keep something from the public or the Congress, then you suspect there's something that should be hidden from his perspective. And I think this is very telling. And I do believe that the documents will be released, at least some of them. Congress will be able to get them eventually. The question, will it be soon enough?
Yep. OK, let's get to the current president, Joe Biden. And of course, he's on a real international zone the next month. Of course, G20 in Rome, then off to Glasgow.
Yes, indeed. And the big one is the Glasgow summit, this COP26, which is the latest of the climate summits that is very critical and crucial now because the Paris Accord in 2015 had certain targets. The targets are not being met as well as they should be. For example, that in Paris, the scientists told us, and the countries agreed to try to limit the greenhouse gases to just above 1.5%, at the most 2% Celsius. We should keep it at 1.5%. And now we're on the trajectory to go on toward 2.7% unless greenhouse gas emissions are cut by 55%, which means a renewed commitment from all 200 countries or so that will be there to really cut back on dirty electricity, to bring about renewable energy cars, electric cars, for example, and to do other kinds of things that would really help the environment and to stop cutting down as many trees, reforestation. Those things are all important. And how these countries will respond this time around will really probably make or break it as to whether or not we can survive this terrible catastrophe that's awaiting us if we don't do something about it. What kind of nation are we? Are we a nation of laws that will allow law enforcement that's legitimately put in place by the people through voting to be the real law enforcers? Are we going to allow vigilante justice where people can just carry guns around and then claim self-defense and shoot other people? And they shoot other people with no particular motive, no particular self-defense argument when you look at it. And this is a dangerous situation for the United States because are we going to allow vigilante justice to be, used so applied with open carry laws, guns? In some states, you can carry a gun openly, as in Wisconsin, and loaded. And the fact is that this was something that was a response. There was a demonstration in response to Jacob Blake's shooting by an African-American man by a white policeman. In this case, it was a white young man shooting three white people, young men, killing two of them, because he felt he should defend and enforce the law himself. So it's a very tragic situation. We need to see a very deep self-reflection at this point as a nation. It is a tremendous tragedy, and I just cannot imagine how Mr. Baldwin feels right now. And the gun situation is horrendous. As you know, about 25 to 30,000 people are killed every year by gun violence, by gun shootings. And about half of them are suicides, but about half of them are homicides, where people actually kill people that they know in their own homes quite often in a moment of passion. That's why we need to have strict gun regulation. We have to ban these assault weapons as well, but the handguns are the worst, most pernicious devices, as was used in this movie set. So it has to be brought under control. I keep saying that, but these big gun manufacturers have a lot of money in politics. They influence members of Congress. They scare them not into voting against gun control. We got to move forward.
Where are we at with infrastructure and budget reconciliation bills?
That's a remarkable issue right now, and it's huge because if President Biden had gotten his way and the $3.5 trillion was spent in this budget reconciliation bill to bring in human infrastructure and some physical infrastructure, then you would have a real expansion of the economy. And matter of fact, that would be only about 1.1% of the GDP. If you look at President Roosevelt's New Deal, that was also a big infrastructure bill that helped America. That New Deal was 2.8% of the GDP. This is a smaller portion of what the Americans produce, what we produce every year. And it's not that much money, and yet the Manchin and Sinema, the two senators, are blocking it, and they're getting it cut down to half its size. Maybe 1.9 trillion, if Biden is lucky, will get done. And it will, in fact, bring in some programs that will help, like childcare and elder care, but also infrastructure, some infrastructure, and also things that will help, like rebuilding our schools. Unfortunately, President Biden is going to have to cut out, or probably will end up cutting out, the community college, the tuition-free community college, which was in that bill if he had gotten full funding. Now, I would have suggested, cutting the funding if you have to in half to please these two senators. And then what you do is you just extend it over a 5-year period rather than 10. You keep the same funding amount, but you shorten the period of spending so you can cut the expenditures. And then if people want to continue, they can extend that spending or they can let it go. That would have been the best way to go, in my view.
Certainly been going back here in Australia